Old man getting sleepy tired out here. Ate dinner at 7. Fell asleep for like almost an hour. And woke up at 8:30 and I was like, oh, let me go do some more work, babe. So, which is usually code for masturbation, but I was like, let me check emails, and there's a shit ton of emails. Thank you for your comments, by the way, everyone. I consider them just as valid as an email or a text, so I do my best to respond to them all. If some guy, what's his name? Was it Blackwalder? He said he texted me a couple times about the 18 SDR. Just so you know, I think I remember the problem was that you couldn't give me the gap dims, or me personally, I think they're not worth recone, the SCAR SDRs. The problem is that the parts are really expensive right now, and so it's cheaper probably just to buy new ones. So the amount of effort you're going to put into it, and I used to, what's funny is I first saw that from Ted Turner when I was hanging out with Ted Turner at Speakerworks. The shop had actually closed down here in Phoenix, and Ted had moved all the stuff to his garage. And I was hanging out with Ted, and Ted liked my company at the time, and I was just trying to learn from him. And I saw him turn down somebody, and I was like, why did you say that? Like, why didn't? Because at the time I was like super hungry, and I was like really inexperienced, and he says, dude, he says, I would love to. He says, but I have to be really selective with my time. Otherwise, you end up in too many projects. I still end up in too many projects. So I should be more selective with my time. But I'm a sucker for trying to help people. But as far as this motor, this is the Elemental Designs 13-inch. I think it's AV 13, whatever. Anyways. I tried it on the hot plate. This fucker just, right here, this top plate just absorbs so much energy that the glue would not give away. And so then I took it inside, put the oven on broil, which it only goes up to 500. And the wife's like, "What? Why is the kitchen hot?" And I'm like, oops, I forgot to tell Sherry. So I tried that, and it was still rock hard, and wasn't giving up the ghost. So I decided to just drop it here on the old reinforced concrete, and finally it cracked here. So I do my best to try to save ferrite, just because it's so expensive. They don't let you just order, 1,000 pounds. They want you to order a lot. And then again, that is actually not affordable for me to buy anymore. The way that I got it was through the closeouts from a dyer, and also, what was it? A dyer and Volcano. So I got a lot of my ferrite that way, and that was when manufacturing was actually worth something, but it's not really anymore, because if you're going to do those kinds of numbers, if you're going to do 50 or 100 drivers, it is cheaper just to have China make it. The thing you got to watch out for, though, is finding a vendor, and that's what's difficult, and that's one of the things that I learned from David Moore over at PSI when I visited him in January 2006, when I learned what kind of markup you get on these woofers. I was like, wow, that's very interesting. So like basically this one here, you can probably get from China fully built for right around $40 or $50. And that's with only like a 50 order minimum quantity, 50 piece minimum quantity. But then, you got to put it on a pallet or two or whatever it is, and then ship it. And it's got to go by sea. So it's 6 weeks to get to port. Always, if you can, go through Alibaba and make sure you get the door-to-door service, which is typically through UPS. And what they've been doing lately with the dust caps that I got is they get the pallet in from China, and then they pull the pallet apart, and it's all just boxes, and then they put separate labels on the boxes. So that's the way to go, and UPS has some of the best rates. So, but back to this motor, I dropped it, it finally cracked, and then what I do is I take a chisel, and you get in there. This thing is still very live, and see, look at that. And so then what you do is you work your way around, and then I use these spacers that we use as shims for spacing. When I did all those Titan motors, we had cut these up at a certain thickness in order to work that. And now we have a ton of them left over. I just use them for random shit. So you wedge it up, then put one in, and then work it away around, and then now do 2 wedges, and then now 3 wedges. And so eventually, if I can get it to a point where I can get my toes in there with shoes on, get my toes in there, and then just, you know, jerk and pull in one clean sweep, get it off of there. And then what I do is then I put it back on the hot plate with probably the ferrite side down, because that's a thinner material. Otherwise, if you flip it, the heat has to go through all that steel in order to get to this joint and destroy it. So, but shit, let me pause the video and then I'll pull this apart real quick so we can get a better look at it. All right, that wasn't too bad. So it looks like the ring has already come unglued, which this happens. Okay, so first of all, this is a Faraday ring. And, you know, the guys talk about it as if it's some sort of magical thing. It doesn't do anything, especially in a subwoofer. The effects that it does give only show up in small signal testing. That's what Tilo calls it. When, you know, you put it on the woofer tester, and, you know, even if you do a clipple, it's a low power test. Anything usually above 100 or even 200 watts, and it becomes saturated, and it's as if it doesn't exist. So the only reason to put it in there then is marketing, and companies like builders like Jacob at Sundown still do it. Some other people do it. Again, it's just because people think they need it. Now in mid ranges and tweeters, there may be some effects, but are they audible? I doubt it. Because not everybody uses them. If they were really audible and useful, everybody would use them, right? See how that makes sense? It's just like when people get really upset when I shit on JL. They're like, how can you shit on JL? It's the best. And I go, if it was the best, there would be, and if it was the only way to do things, they would be the only company alive. That's not true. There's hundreds of brands. So there's more than one way to do stuff. All right. So chill out. So, but this is interesting. So I'm hoping that this is Neo. That would be really interesting. I'll have to look at it on the old webpage using the archive.org to see it. And I'll put a link in the description when I find it. Yeah, I'll put this back on the hot plate overnight. And it's just so you know, when you know it's done, you can also do them on a barbecue grill with propane. The propane gets a little expensive, and then of course if you let it run all night, the propane will, you know, that's $25 to $30 down the toilet just for separating a motor. And I've done it many times. But just so you know, when you put this on the hot plate or in the oven, when you start to smell the cries of all the Chinese orphans that gave their lives in order to make this for you, that's the smell of the glue separating and going up in smoke. So it's a very distinct, just like when you smell tires burning, you're like, I know tires are burning, and not because somebody did a burnout. Like, you know, somebody's got tires set on fire. It's a very distinctive smell. And especially after you watch Blade Runner, you're like, yeah, that's the smell of China. The smell of sadness. So, but yeah, when you smell that, that means they're close to done, or they should be done, and then you want to pull them off and let them cool off. And then, like, I think on the Titans, because we were doing those, oh gosh, we were doing like 2 or 3 a day. And they'd get to a certain point, a certain smell, and we would actually do them hot, where I think we put down a pad, and then we would give them like a firm, like a 6-inch drop onto the pad, something like that rubber pad, and then they would just come apart. And that's what you want. You don't want any chipping or anything like that. Sometimes you could put give it a whack with the dead blow and the chisel. Other times it wouldn't give it up, and so we'd have to give it a little pop. And then, but a lot of those were not magnetized either, so which was good. And then we grind all the glue off and prep them again, and then that's what you see on the 4x4 magnets or motors, and the 5-stack and 6-stacks. So, and then you zap them again, and you know, a magnet can be used over and over again. So even if you get up to what's called a Curry point, which is where it loses its magnetic charge and magnetic abilities. After it cools, and that's the same with Neo. After it cools, it comes back down to temperature. It hasn't really changed. If anything, maybe it's tempered it. But I don't recommend dipping it like in with steel. You know, you quench it in water, because when the temperature changes on these really quick, they fracture. So they're really brittle. Also, just for reference, whenever you see ferrite, ferrite is actually a brand, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's like a brand of. Well, this is also called iron powder. And there's a video I'll post in the description on how iron powder and magnets are made. And but the brand name is called ferrite. And then it's also often referred to as ceramic. They say, oh, that's a ceramic motor. And that's because of how brittle it is. And basically that's what it is ceramic. So I'm sure the iron powder is not just iron powder. It's mixed with a certain stuff to kind of glue it all together. But they make them like cookies. They have little dies with, you know, or muffin pans or whatever you want to call it. And they put them through an oven process, probably an arc furnace, and something that can get really, really hot. And then I'm sure there's a cooling process, and then maybe even a tempering process, depending on what formula they used and what the application is. So, but I don't think, I haven't seen any videos lately of anything that involved. You can also look at Russell Wong's channel. I forget the brand name, his brand name, but Russell went over, or I think he's in China. Shock Industries. Russell Wong did a lot of videos at XY. XY is the largest speaker parts manufacturer. And I'll put a link to their website too. You can check them out. I don't recommend dealing with them directly. I recommend using a representative. You'll pay slightly more. However, most of you guys will be doing very small quantities, and that you have to use a rep. Otherwise, they don't want to deal with you. But you'll find what XY is probably most proud of is that they have the world's largest cafeteria. So, which I find hilarious. Like, it's like, fuck speaker parts. We only care about the cafeteria. So, but I got to do this. I got to do some other stuff. But what I always tell Sherry, I gotta go jizz on some woofers, which is where I set coils overnight with the epoxy, and then I come back in the morning and then move on to the next step. So, but I'm going to put these on the hot plate. I love you guys. I will talk to you more. If you have requests about something, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just dancing in the dark with Bruce Springsteen on figuring out what you guys like, and I'll keep doing the videos that you do like, as long as I can afford the time. Talk to you. I love you. Bye-bye.